Good afternoon. It is another positive impact for mind and body today. And I wanted to chat with you about your soul. A lot of people have some conflicting feelings about, their soul and what it actually is saying or doing or thinking or being. I will say that being in the business that I'm in as a healer, psychic, but also as a personal trainer, metabolic technician, and behavior specialist, I have a lot of conflicting thoughts about the soul and the body. Number one, we have a big disparity about whether or not our soul is actually involved in our physical processes. And I had this come up recently. I've been writing a book proposal for something called Embodying Enlightenment. And of course, whenever you're writing something, you're always struggling with the thought of working with the vernacular or the jargon that your industry uses versus what would be more understandable and relatable to the general population. So if you're not involved in the fitness industry and behavior mechanisms or diet or exercise, maybe you wouldn't know what I was talking about. So this came up recently because I'm working with an editor, and some of the issues that I had was that there was a lack of base understanding and knowledge about the physical body and the energy within it. And what does this mean to you? I mean, how does it impact you? How does it make you a better person? It kind of coincides with this other thought that came up recently. And it was about how color isn't actually associated with the chakras. Did you know that? It was actually introduced, I think in the 70s or early 70s, late 60s by some philosophers and theorists that had needed to attach a value that described what the chakras were outside of the unusual symbolism for Western culture at the time of what Eastern Indians thought each power center represented. And those symbols are powerful. I'm not discounting them. I'm just saying that when you're coming from a place that you don't know, right? It's like trying to learn a different language. If you don't know Hindi, or I weren't raised as a Hindu Indian, you might not know what those symbols mean, right? That's just a common thing, and that goes across the board. I had channeled some information this morning from Archangel Raziel about how, excuse me, I was sitting on my sweater, about how, if we were told, okay, these caveman pictorials, these cuneiform pictures on the wall, they actually pertain to your soul and how it develops, you'd be like, what? Like, I don't get. No, you would have someone help you interpret what those symbols are, maybe for historic purposes, just kind of getting to know the culture and learn a little bit more about it. Or if you have to write a thesis on it, yeah, that would be interesting if you're an archaeology major. But on the other end of it, if you just took like a slight interest in it, it might just be interesting to know what those symbols meant and what they were trying to display and portray in terms of, this is our way of saving this story for future generations, right? So when you don't have the skill or the knowledge in how to interpret something, how to give it meaning, and there's a preconceived notion that if it doesn't exist in the Western world, it's not going to really impact our minds or our bodies. Outside of yoga, yoga is like now a nationally acceptable way to practice a body kind of like mindful movement that encourages peace of mind, strength, flexibility, all those wonderful things that help us. What's the bigger goal for that? Help us sit for extended periods of time in meditation, right? But it's one of the only, I want to say, I struggle to think of yet another, and feel free to type it in the chat if you can think of another cultural adaptation here in the US of a religious or philosophical belief system about the soul and the body. There aren't many. But when we first heard of this, when we first thought of the chakra system and we first saw these symbols, you know, and I want to say it happened earlier than the 60s, but I'm wondering if a lot of people first thought of them as, you got it, like hieroglyphs, just like any other caveman drawing, like any other culture that we're not used to seeing or experiencing, that is not ingrained in us and is not a part of our history. So when I did the channeled session with the angels, I asked, you know, what was, you know, was it true that there were no colors in the chakra system originally, when it was kind of birthed into being, that there were power centers in the body full of energy? And they said, Raziel said, yes, it is true that there were no associated colors at the time because the symbols were very powerful. And the colors that they saw really, they didn't have words for actually yet. So I said, well, you know, why do we associate the colors with the chakras now? And they said, because your culture needed to identify with those symbols in a way that was meaningful to Western culture. So at the time, our scientists were really kind of delving into that thought of quantum theory, of quantum physics, and that everything is made up of energy. And we, you know, for all the scientific knowledge that we had, you know, we were also exploring the thought that different frequencies of color vibrate at different rates of vibration. And Archangel Raziel said, if you had not associated those colors with the chakra centers and associated a value and a meaning to it, then the thought of your soul growing up through your body and the Shaktipat would have been lost. You wouldn't have valued it and thought of it as something worth pursuing as a spiritual, philosophical pursuit. And that's what the angelic realm was hoping for, that we would kind of not just accept, but work with that thought that we can raise the vibration in our own bodies and see it as acceptable to our culture and be able to access that information, that wisdom, that knowledge, and evolve ultimately, right? So I found all this very, very fascinating because as I was writing my book proposal, I recognized that some of what I was talking about was probably a bit of hieroglyphics for other people, just kind of flipping through the pages. So I wanted to ask the audience if they really feel their soul is animated through their body. And it's a shame no one's watching right now. But that would be something that I would love to hear more on your thoughts and how you feel and how you've experienced spiritual events or soul types of yearnings. Because to me, as doing what I do, you know, giving psychic readings for personal training clients and healing through Reiki, which is an energy form, right? And which is, the Reiki ray actually is purple, not for nothing. It was there way before we came up with our own vibrational system of color. So when we think along those lines, you know, are we really animated through our bodies with our souls? And if that is true, is it normal and natural to agree that if God created all these souls, then is God working through us? And I would be the first to say, yeah, that's exactly what happens. Because I see it all the time. You know, people come to me, like I said, to lose weight or to get strong or, you know, have greater endurance. But what I find is they're actually looking for these pieces of their soul. They're trying to figure out how to get the love they want. They're trying to figure out how to feel more fulfilled in their lives. They're trying to figure out how to make more of a spiritual connection to themselves. And what does that look like? What does it feel like? And how do we grow and develop that practice? So the best way that I can say, like, for instance, if I showed you a diagram of a chakra, right, and the graphic that went with it in our Western culture, and I showed it to you, would you say, oh yeah, I know exactly what that is? Or would you sit there and say, I think I saw that in a yoga class once on a poster? I'm willing to bet B, unless you're a yoga instructor or a devout yogi and, you've studied these things. I'm willing to bet that it's B more than A across the board, across the country. So what we have to do then is to figure out a way that we can actively and effectively communicate our souls with our bodies, because I sincerely believe that every single thing that you experience in your body has already happened in the soul. And the soul is saying, we really need to grow and experience this, or we really need to get past this in order to evolve, or I have to pay attention to this little detail. This came up to me once recently also. I feel pretty good about my life, what's going on. I love my kids. They're all doing pretty well. Would I have done anything differently? Not so much. But there was an area of my life I felt like, I should pay more attention here. And so I've been giving that more thought, kind of rebirthing how I thought of the whole dynamic of it, and recognizing that it was not a waste of time, and that the more I learned about this particular aspect of my life, the better off I would be and my family would benefit. So I'm willing to rebirth that thought. And I was wondering, since it's Easter, what are you going to rebirth? What do you want to recreate in your mind and your body and your soul? Is there some aspect of your personality that maybe hasn't served you very well in the past 10 years? And I think initially, when we are thinking about trying something new, we're essentially happy with who we are right now, because you would have changed everything if you weren't. But what you have to ask yourself is there some part of your behavior that's perpetuating something you don't want in your life? And then do you have the clarity to identify it and then turn it around? So I gave an example a while back of how you can attempt to change a maple tree into a pine tree. If you wrapped it up really tight, cut some limbs off, fed it pine tree food, right? No, it's still going to be a freaking maple tree. So regardless of what you do on the outside, you have to kind of go back and maybe take a look at the roots of what happened, what started that thought, what perpetuated that behavior that you're willing to give up now and rebirth, just the way Jesus did, right? And it's not a criticism, it's not a judgment. Some people kind of feel like, oh, I don't want to do this because it's jeopardizing who my personality is. They take very great pride in that. But I think that's also where we stumble, when we take too much pride in an aspect of our personality that is actually not serving us. So I love the idea of giving something up. And that's, I guess, the whole point of Lent. But if we could focus and appreciate that that this habit or this part of our personality has helped us grow and develop up until this point where we recognize that maybe it's not working for us anymore, and be willing to give that over, that's a huge step. That's a huge step. And it's part of the reason why I created Be a Body Psychic. I wanted to give people access to tools that meant something to them that they could identify and communicate with, or create communication with, and then fully actualize and utilize in their mind and body and their reality, changing their reality. So that being said, again, I am going to give you the free text body dash mind to 33777 and get your free body scan. And you tell me if you don't feel like you are starting to see part of your soul actually activated in your body. I think you're going to find that it is very obvious. I think you're going to find that it creates a sense of excitement when you do access that information. And when you do get that information on a very basic level, what is it saying to you? So I wish you luck. I mean, there's a lot of things I could say, and I was hoping to answer some questions. If you have some questions about specific body issues you've been having, and it could be anything. It could be urinary tract infections, if you have lower back problems, if you have, mitral valve prolapse, if you have problems with your thyroid, or you feel like brain fog all the time, feel free to contact me, and I would be happy to give you not just my psychic input, but my practical input about how those parts of your body function and work, and how you can make them better, and listen to them for guidance in your own growth and development and evolution. Okay? Well, good luck with everything. And thank you so much for joining me. Like I said, if you ever need to contact me, you can always contact me at mindbodymastery.org. .org. It'll come to me one day. And for some reason, the whole time I was typing, it didn't work. Mindbodymastery. .org. And Master You. Another faux pas. Mindbodymastery.org. I can also be, you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at Nicole's MBM. And I'd be, like I said, I'm happy to entertain any questions that you have. I'll get this right one day. Bear with me. One day. Like I said, at Nicole's MBM everywhere. Love ya. Bye. Oh, and I lied before. Not today. Last week I lied because I thought Love Infinity was coming back today, but she's coming back next week. So we'll have a lot of fun then. Okay, bye-bye.